We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
You are listening to The Underground Marketing Conspiracy, a secret ritual where entrepreneurs acquire highly classified and confidential business knowledge that the top 1% of income earners don't want you to know. And now, your host, Maddie Milligan.
What is going on, my fellow conspirator and conspirators? Welcome to the Underground Marketing Conspiracy. Woo! I want to talk to you today about how to write emails that people open and click through and then buy things from. It's been one of my biggest things. I've written a lot of email. Let's go back into the day when I used to work in customer service for a little while. And at some point, I pivoted from doing the phone calls into managing multiple inboxes. So I already had a past experience with writing a little bit in university. I was never a great student, as I've talked about, I think before, in high school. But in university, I tried. I tried in the last year of high school, but I had all sorts of teachers who were always like, oh, you kind of have this gift of writing and really just putting wordsmiths together and making things sound very interesting. And it was something that I always went into. So when I was managing these inboxes, every single day I would get to work and there would be hundreds of different emails. And then I would just go through them one by one by one. And I would systematize everything over time. And gradually I improved. And I had a tool that I used at the time. I think it was called BullChat. Yeah, it was a decent tool. There were some bugs, but it was pretty good. And it was a customer service tool where you could just get it to remember canned responses and just paste them. So what I did was I spent a lot of time taking the top 20 most common questions and then just having an answer for them. And essentially I would just, based on their subject line, I knew what the email was about. I would open it and I'd be like, oh, it's going to be about this. I know the issue. Oh, okay, cool. You're going to have this. All right, sweet. So I would do the response, be like, hey, and if they sent me their information, I found them. I was like, sweet, here we go. You're all under warranty. All your stuff is good to go. But if it wasn't, then I'd be like, hey, you know what? We need some more information. Contact me. Give me this, 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 and this. Or I'd be like, hey, I know this solution to your problem. Do this, 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 and this. And then sometimes people be like, oh, it still wouldn't work, but I know that they weren't looking wrong. So I tried to make videos in some cases and use third-party videos, but apparently you can't do that. So keep that in mind. But because you have to give other people credit. So over time, though, I just practiced so much. It was over a year where I managed these inboxes. And then when I got promoted in that role into another role, I was managing my own inbox, which was always overflooded, and then an inbox for a team with tons of email. So I've written a lot of email in my life. And I'm not going to lie, writing email can be very, very, very tedious, repetitive, very boring when you do it for a long time. But it's something I'm very good at. But what we're talking about today is completely different from customer service style emails, right? We're talking about marketing emails. So at one point, this team was like, hey, you're pretty good at writing email. Would you mind writing an email and we're going to send it a blast? I'm like, oh, cool. How many people is it going to go to? And they're like, oh, probably like 150,000 people. And I'm just like, okay. So that email took me a long time to write. And it wasn't even that long. And one of the main mistakes I always see people make with email writing and copywriting is that when they're writing the body copy, you need to kind of have one thought per line and kind of separate it to make it easier for people to read. That's the main thing that I do with my copywriting. I'm always thinking about the other person and their perspective. How are they going to consume this email when they actually read it? But the other day I was talking with someone, or it was yesterday, this dude, and I was telling him about how I write email and how I send them to my list. And I honestly don't email my list enough, to be honest. I just have too many people that I'm writing. And I know that's an excuse, something I'll work on in the future for sure. And I'm in the process too of looking for a couple of other people who can just write copy for me. I don't mind selling it and then they can just write it. And the benefit of doing that is I can teach them and they can improve. So I really like to use, though, what they teach in ClickFunnels, right? Russell Brunson teaches what they teach in the One Funnel Away Challenge. If you haven't taken the One Funnel Away Challenge, by the way, you need to take that. If you're new to marketing, it's $100. like you're going to learn $25,000 worth of stuff in that 30 days. You don't have to go through it in 30 days. You can take a couple months if you want to, but that's a course I would really recommend. And I actually have an offer if you want to check it out at mattymilligan.com/OFA. That's mattymilligan.com/OFA, and that's Oscar Foxtrot Alpha. So in that, they teach this thing called the hook story offer. And you might be wondering, what is the hook story offer? What's a hook? What's a story? What's an offer? So a hook is kind of this clickbaity thing that's going to get someone to click on your email, right? One of my favorite examples is once I fell on my butt on black ice. So that became the hook in my subject line. And it was like, what falling on my butt and what slipping and falling on black ice and breaking my butt taught me about business. And they're like, what? And they click it and they open it. And it's like, hey, there I was yesterday walking down the street. It was rather icy. It was -15. They hadn't salted the roads. And I thought I was walking down the street and I thought I'd be safe, but I didn't have my boots on. I just had my regular shoes on. And what ended up happening is I slipped on some black ice. I fell, hurt my tailbone, and I was in a little bit of pain. And I thought that I had broken a bone in my body, but I basically sat there for a few minutes, and then I realized it wasn't so bad. Got up, walked it off, and I was absolutely fine. So what does this have to do with business? Well, let me tell you right now. If you're like me and you're a business owner, you've probably fallen on your butt before. And you know what the best thing you can do for that is? To get better results? You know what you should do right after that is to get back up, right? Get right back on the horse, right? And you know what? That's the main lesson in point, right? So that's what I do. And at the end, I'm usually going to have an offer. In emails, though, I love to have the offer in the footer. Steve Larson talked about this, right? Where he's like, man, I talked with Russell, and apparently last month we made $100,000 just from people clicking in that email footer, right? So that way your offers are kind of hidden in your footer. It's usually in the PS or, again, in this custom footer section you've created. But the hook is really the subject line in your email. The story is really just the body copy. And at the end, there needs to be some sort of an offer, right? So that's really how I write all of my emails for anyone. And when you stick to that, again, for sentence-wise, it can be like 10 lines, it can be 20, it can be 30. It doesn't need to necessarily be that long, as long as you're telling a really good hook story offer, right? For the story itself, I think the hook is not that complicated. I mean, I would just make a list of a bunch of hooks and really spend one day practicing your hooks, right? And the hooks, if you think about it, it's kind of like fish. They're the bait that get people to bite, and then you're kind of reeling them in with the story. But the story itself, I use this analogy all the time. I think I stole this from Frank Kern. I definitely stole it from Frank Kern. Let's not lie. So what it is the story is kind of like the hammer, and there's a point of the story, and that's the nail. So you're using the hammer, which is the story, to really hit that nail and point home with people, right? And again, with your stories, this is just random stuff that happens in your life, right? Like me this morning, I don't know, I could totally talk about some things. It's like, hey, like I woke up, I didn't feel so good, I felt like I only slept a few hours the night before, and you know what it taught me? It's like, hey, you know what, sometimes when you don't feel like doing things, you just have to get up and go at it anyways, right? You're telling a quick story. I could even talk about, it's like, hey, I watched such and such movie last night, here's what I learned from this movie. It's really going into these Seinfeld style emails that Russell Brunson talks about, right? If you've never seen Seinfeld, that's like such a freaking good show to just learn random ideas and stuff, because that whole show was completely about absolutely nothing, right? And there was all sorts of little funny things throughout the show, different ideas, and at the beginning of the episode, Jerry Seinfeld would just go up, pitch a couple jokes, and then they would kind of go into the episode, right? And from there'd always be these different stories throughout the whole things. And there was no points to any of the episodes ever, right? Like there were so many. Oh man, my favorite episode of Seinfeld is when I love this episode. It's like it might be the funniest episode of TV ever made. It's this episode where Jerry goes to buy a car from this guy Putty who's dating Elaine, and George is there, and he's trying to get this Twix bar, and oh my god, that episode is so freaking funny. And it basically just culminates with, like, at some point in the episode, in the car dealership because Jerry is apparently going to get this deal from Putty, who works there as one of the car salesmen. And then what ends up happening is basically Elaine and Putty break up, so Jerry no longer gets the deal. So Jerry now has to like be the sales guy getting Elaine and Putty back together, and he ultimately does it, and then he gets his deal. Oh yeah, and then Kramer goes on this crazy car ride with this other sales guy and basically shows the car salesman guy and like makes him question his existence. And the whole time George is like he buys this Twix from this vending machine and it doesn't end up falling. And then so he's like, oh man, like now I need some more money. So he goes to get some more money, he comes back, and there's no more Twix, and the one that he bought is gone. And he's like, what happened? And he sees this one mechanic like eating the multiple Twix. And the guy's like, oh, it wasn't a Twix. It was like, what is it? It was like a Babe Ruth or something. He's like, no, I know a Twix when I see one. And he's basically, they go into this huge argument. Again, show about absolutely nothing, right? That's what your emails should be. But again, it needs to be still interesting. There needs to be a story. There needs to be a point to it that really resonates and has context for your audience and for what niche you're in, industry you're in, for what you're selling. All right. And again, always have that offer at the end. Usually just have a link that can go to some sort of web page that you have, right? Don't put affiliate links in your emails because these autoresponder companies, they don't like that, right? You're going to get marked as spam very quickly. You're going to get shut down. So don't do that, all right? Use whatever it is. But again, if you're writing emails, focus on that. Take the One Funnel Away challenge. Focus on the hook, the story, and the offer with your emails. Hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Underground Marketing Conspiracy. If you did, maybe you want to leave a review and give me some feedback. I would really appreciate that. Maybe you have some questions. You can send those to undergroundmarketingconspiracy@gmail.com. Maybe even consider subscribing, watching a few more, or listening to a few more episodes when you get a chance. My name is Matty Milligan. You can find out more about me by visiting mattymilligan.com. And again, I suggest taking the One Funnel Away Challenge, which you can find more about at mattymilligan.com/OFA. And I will see you guys next time on another episode of The Underground Marketing Conspiracy. Woo!